Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going over this pistol that you see in my hands right now. It's the Ruger Security 9, and we're doing it out here in a beautiful spring day in Carolina rather than the normal green screen. So why do I have this pistol in my hand? The answer is because so many of you requested that I review it. The pistol's been around now for about a year, and it's gotten pretty good reports from everything I've seen online. And the beauty of it is it's a pistol from a reputable manufacturer, which certainly Ruger is, and it's very reasonably priced. I think the MSRP on this one's like $379. However, if you look around online, you'll see it for $300 to $325, especially with coupon codes and things like that. So that's a very attractive thing to a lot of folks. I reviewed similarly priced pistols from other big name competitors out there, like the Smith & Wesson SD9VE, I believe it is, and then the Walther PPX. And I know they have an updated version of that I haven't checked out yet. But getting a pistol that's reliable, quality from a good manufacturer is something that a lot of people want, especially if you're looking for like a truck gun, or there's someone who's not so well off financially, but they still want a gun they can depend on with their life. And I guess today we'll kind of answer that, if this is a gun that fills that role or not. We'll let the dogs take a look at it and then get into all the different details of the pistol. Now we'll get into all the little details of the pistol. First off, it comes with 2 magazines. They are all metal construction, 15 rounders that you guys see here. We've had no issues with the magazines at all. They appear to be well made. There's no crazy machining marks or anything like that. One thing to point out though while we're looking at the magazines is that they are cut only for left side mag release. You can't swap the mag release. It doesn't have an ambient mag release. That's one of the things they probably did there to save money. I should also mention the mags do not work with the Ruger Americans and vice versa. So Ruger Americans don't work in this. They're separate magazines. So it comes with 2 of those. They also have the band state ones for those of you guys living behind enemy lines. Moving on to the grip, it has a decent texture to it. It has that nice 18 or 17 degree, 1911-ish grip angle. It presents very naturally for a lot of people. The texture on it is good. Me personally, I tend to like really aggressive texturing, but I know a lot of you guys don't. So if that's you, it's good to go. It shouldn't be abrasive at all if you guys are using this for inside the waistband concealed carry. But to give you sort of a example, it's more aggressive than say like a Gen 3 Glock, but a little bit less than an M&P 2.0 from Smith & Wesson. So all in all though, I do not dislike it. It could be worse, and there are a lot worse out there, so kudos to them for that. The grip circumference there is pretty small. I have large hands, and it kind of feels like, you know, I'm Hickok 45 when I pick this thing up. But it feels small in my hands. But for those of you guys who have smaller or medium-sized hands, it should be a very, very comfortable gun to grip and reach the controls. Speaking of controls, our safety here is left side only. It's an interesting safety. It's relatively hard to put on, which I think is a good thing. To take it off is pretty easy. But if you push in, like towards the gun at all when you do it, it won't engage. You have to make sure you press specifically straight up on it. So if I push in, I'm pushing in and up. You guys can see my fingers turning white. But if I just push up, very little effort to do it. However, it's kind of unnatural when you have your firing grip. It's just a little bit weird, but again, I think that's a good thing. You don't want to accidentally put your safety on when you don't want it on. Of course, me personally, I wish there wasn't an external safety on it, but I know a lot of people, particularly at the price point this pistol comes in at, will like it. The only other control on the pistol is this slide block and slide release here. So it's relatively small, which I like, so I don't accidentally actuate it, which happens to me on some pistols that have big takedown, or rather slide release levers. You can see push up on it to lock it, but just like the safety, if you push in towards the gun at all, when you go to drop it, it will not go. You have to push straight down. So straight down, it'll go home. Without it, your finger will just be turning white. We have our little takedown pin there, which we'll get to in just a second. We have our 1913 rail out front. You can run any sort of light, laser, etc. that you want to on there. We've ran a few, no issues with it at all. And one thing I wanted to point out that I didn't point out with the magazine in is that the design of this pistol is pretty cool in terms of the lines, right? So if you look here at the front serrations, they meet up perfectly with our frame, and the same thing here with our magazine. If you actually have your magazine in here, you can see how the actual friction and texturing all lines up, and it's actually cut out so that way if you have to strip and rip your mag, say you have a double feed or something like that, you can do it pretty easily. So good on them for the design cues on the pistol. The finish on the slide is just a blued finish, and you guys can see it's starting to show a good bit of wear, definitely more than what you'd expect if you were looking at something that was nitrided, melanited, etc. But again, that's one of the cost-cutting features to it. Blued slides work fine. They've been around for decades, and there's no issue with them. It's just not quite as good in terms of corrosion resistance and wear patterns as the modern melanite might be. So you guys can see the sights here. As of right now, when I'm recording this video, there's only one set, or two sets rather, both high-vis of aftermarket sights for it. So these are the factory ones on there. They're polymer. The rear is adjustable, so you can move it, of course, if you need to get your windage lined up. I suppose you can do the same with the front. But basic U-notch here on the rear, or square notch, I should say, with that U Glock style rear sight, and the front sight there is just a plain white dot. I will tell you they line up and they work just fine. Point of aim, point of impact with Minuteman Munitions 124 grain is dead on. I would, of course, like to see these be metal. It's one of the things I complain about on Glocks all the time. And I'd like to see it also have a little bit of a ledge so you can do one-handed manipulation should you need to do so. But the sights, like a lot of things in this gun, are just, again, a cost-cutting feature. And I'm much less concerned about polymer sights on a gun that costs what this does versus, say, like a Glock that costs almost twice as much. Back here on the rear, you guys can see our hammer. And I guess we'll get into that real quick. So our hammer, basically, every time you cycle it, will pre-cock. So it's actually a double action only gun in terms of the trigger, but it doesn't feel like it at all. So you'll see here when I press the trigger, the hammer goes home and the hammer drops down. And then when you cycle it, it comes back and so forth. Now, the trigger, we'll get into that. So it has our Glock style safety there, the little dingus out front. The one thing I've had in terms of problems with this gun, it happened twice, and it's kind of looks like the reverse is happening right now. So sometimes the actual little dingus safety there will get stuck and won't move. That happened actually one time. I think I was shooting in slow-mo, so you guys are probably seeing the footage of it here. But I just had to like take my finger off and kind of hit it again, and then it would fire. That's definitely not a good thing, but it is user fixable in the field, which you're going to have problems. That's definitely something you're looking for there. But the trigger pull, in terms of feel, you have this little bit of slop, and then once you start to take it up, you can feel the pressure, and it's pretty smooth from there. It's not super crisp though, which is sort of the nature of a double action only trigger. The reset is really long. It's positive though, and you definitely know it happened. But it's not a bad trigger. It's very similar to anybody who's fired the PPX pistol that Walther puts out, which I like that trigger, and I like this trigger too. It breaks right around 5.5 pounds. It has that over travel stop there built into it. And for, you know, in terms of actual practical use on the range, I've had no issues hitting what we're shooting at with this trigger. Disassembling the pistol is pretty straightforward. We're going to, of course, make sure it is unloaded and around the chamber. No magazine, we're good. At this point, we need to take the pressure off of our takedown pin. I do that by just using my thumb in there, pull back slightly. And you can use a case of a spent cartridge to do this, or you can use just a small screwdriver there. We're just gonna pop it out, takedown pin comes out, slide comes right off, no need to pull the trigger. I know some folks like that feature. Pull up there on our guide rod and spring. It is a metal guide rod and a captured spring. Pull up and out there on the barrel. You guys will see it has the same bell out there as some of the Ruger micro pistols out there, so it really does follow along in that regard. You can see some finish wear going on there with that blued finish, a little bit more than what we'd probably see if it was melanited, but again, it's relatively inexpensive. Reassembly is the exact same thing, just in the opposite order, of course. And I do have a full cleaning and lubrication video on this pistol if somebody wants to get into all the details on how to do that. Cycle the action. Good to go. Like most new guns, I'm sure a lot of you guys haven't actually seen these in your local gun shop, so I want to just compare it size-wise to the more common ones. Again, here's our Glock 19. This is Gen 3, and you guys can see size-wise it's almost identical. This Ruger Security 9 actually fits almost every Glock 19 holster I have, and you guys have probably seen that so far throughout the review. I've been using Glock 19 holsters for it. I have not purchased a specific Security 9 holster and haven't had any issue there, so almost exactly the same size. Another gun that's sort of in the same marketplace, so a budget 9mm that actually works, our SD9 VE here. Pretty similar in size as well, as you guys can see. It's a little bit longer because of the magazine base plate there. And then with a little bit more expensive option, just like the Glock 19, I suppose, is the Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0 compact. So this is our 4-inch version. There's also a smaller version of this one that I've reviewed. I've reviewed both. And you guys can see, again, it's almost exactly the same size. Of course, the price is going to be the big difference there. we covered most of the important details on the actual pistol performance-wise. We've had two issues with it. One was that issue where the trigger safety got stuck that we already talked about. Again, I just took my finger out, reset it, and it worked just fine, but that would be kind of an unnerving thing on a two-way range for sure. And then we had one malfunction with Tula ammo, the Tula steel-cased 115 grain stuff. It did have a malfunction there, but we have 700 rounds through it, a little bit over at this point, so those are the issues we've had. Other than that, it's ate everything just fine. The majority of that's been Minuteman 115 or 124 grain ammo, and we also put some 147 Spear Gold Dot G2 through it, as well as Federal HST 124 grain, and no issues there. So performance isn't bad. Of course, I wish it didn't have any issues, but just report what happens here, guys. But who do I think this gun's for? I think it's for somebody who's either new to guns or definitely on a budget, but wants something they can depend on. You know, the niche that a lot of like small revolvers would fit, you know, like, oh, I only have a little bit of money, but I want something that'll work. This gun, I think, will fill that role pretty well for a lot of people. Also, people looking for like a truck gun or something, or a vehicle gun that they can leave in a vehicle secured as they choose to do so, and have, you know, 15+1 rounds ready should they ever need it in a bad situation. So I think it would fill that role well. Could it work as a home defense gun? Absolutely. Yeah, like I said, mounting lights, lasers, etc. on there. Could it work as a carry gun? Absolutely. A lot of guys carry the Glock 19 size guns, and this is right there in that vein in weight. So you certainly could carry it. It's not too big in that regard, and it is relatively thin and ergonomic there on the grip, like we talked about earlier. Would I rather have an M&P, the 2.0 compact that's a similar size? Absolutely, I would. I like the finish on it a lot better. I like the grip texture on that one a lot better. Would I rather have a Glock 19? Sure, but that's, you know, another $200 or more in this pistol, so you're almost doubling it for that Glock 19. So it just depends what you want, what you're willing to pay, and what you see the gun as in terms of how it fits what you need. If you guys have any questions about the pistol, by all means, post down below in the comments section. You can post over at my Facebook page as well. That's generally speaking the best way to get in touch with me. I tend to see all the comments over there. Here on YouTube, Full30 or elsewhere, I don't really see them all. We will also, of course, put a link down below for this if you guys are looking to pick one up. And again, big thanks to Brownells for sending it out. And if you guys aren't subscribed, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you are subscribed, thank you very much. I truly appreciate it. I appreciate all of you guys watching, though, regardless of subscribed or not. And I hope to see every one of you in the next video.